stepfather installed a family tracking app to control me after my dad died, then gaslit my mom into believing I was the problem, isolated me from friends, and tried to send me to a boarding school prison. So I turned his own manipulation against him and exposed his dark secrets. I was eating breakfast when my stepfather Jesse announced he was installing a family tracking app on all our phones. He said it was for safety reasons since there had been break-ins in the neighborhood, but his eyes locked onto mine with this predatory intensity that made every alarm bell in my head start screaming. Mom just sat there agreeing with him like a zombie, completely checked out from reality ever since Jesse swooped in 6 months ago. You see, Jesse had slithered into our lives after dad died when we were drowning in hospital bills. At first, mom worshipped him like some kind of saint, but I'd been cataloging his disgusting behavior for weeks. The way his hands would linger on my shoulders during those revolting too long hugs, or how he'd suddenly appear wherever I was in the house like he'd been hunting me. When I tried telling mom, she'd explode with this vicious defensiveness, screaming about how ungrateful I was to the man who saved us from living in our car. The tracking app felt like a noose tightening around my neck. He handed my phone over with those dead shark eyes gleaming, and started demonstrating how he could watch my every movement in real time. Then he dropped the bomb that shattered what was left of my world. He'd been tracking my after-school activities and wanted to know exactly what I was really doing there. Mom perched beside him, nodding like a brainwashed cult member, while he explained how this was just good parenting. When I tried to fight back, Jesse's voice went deadly quiet, and he reminded me that he owns my phone, my car, and my entire existence now. Mom immediately started shrieking about how lucky I was to have someone who cared so much, and that I needed to stop being such a spoiled brat. That night, I stared at my phone knowing this psychopath could monitor my every breath. The next morning, I jolted awake to find Jesse standing in my doorway fully dressed, like he'd been stationed there for hours, just watching me sleep. He claimed he wanted to check on me since I seemed upset, but the way his eyes crawled over my body made me want to vomit. When I demanded he leave, he actually stepped further into my room and planted himself on my bed, running his fingers through my hair while whispering about how beautiful I looked when I was vulnerable. I recoiled like he'd burned me, and Whisper screamed at him to get out, but he just chuckled and said I was being hysterical. Later at school, I desperately tried explaining the situation to one of my teachers. But how do you convince someone that your stepfather is a predator when he hasn't technically crossed any legal lines yet? She listened and scribbled notes, but ultimately delivered the crushing blow that without concrete evidence, there was nothing anyone could do. She suggested family therapy, which was laughable since mom thought Jesse walked on water. When I walked through our front door that afternoon, Jesse was waiting like a spider in his web. He interrogated me about why I'd lingered an extra 20 minutes after classes, demanding to know if I was spreading lies about our family to school officials. I stammered some excuse about using the bathroom, but he kept drilling deeper, asking specifically about counselors and teachers like he could read my mind. Mom materialized during this interrogation, and instead of protecting me, she started attacking me for potentially embarrassing our family at school. That's when the last shred of hope in my chest died as I realized I was completely alone with these two monsters. Jesse's face lit up with pure satisfaction at mom's betrayal, and he suggested maybe I needed constant supervision since I clearly couldn't be trusted with any freedom. Mom agreed instantly, gushing about how teenagers today are too spoiled and need firmer boundaries. I watched my own mother choose this predator over her daughter and felt something inside me break forever. That night, Jesse invaded my room again, this time sitting on my bed for an eternity while his hand rested on my thigh. When I told him he was violating my boundaries, he said I was being dramatic, that physical closeness was healthy in real families. He stayed there talking about how ungrateful daughters sometimes need special attention to learn proper behavior. The next morning, I caught him rifling through my dresser drawers. He spun some obvious lie about putting away laundry, but I could see he'd been searching through my most private belongings, looking for God knows what. When I confronted him, his mask finally slipped and he erupted with this terrifying